It was a scorching Friday afternoon in Atlanta when Marcus Reed parked his beat-up Honda on the edge of downtown. The air shimmered in the heat, cicadas buzzing like broken speakers, and the smell of fried food drifted from a corner stand. Marcus adjusted his faded baseball cap and slung his worn backpack over one shoulder. To anyone passing by, he looked like another young black man trying to make it through a long summer day. But Marcus wasn't just anyone. 3 days earlier, he'd been sworn in as the youngest and the first black chief judge of Fulton County. The news hadn't gone viral yet. His appointment was kept quiet until the official press conference scheduled for Monday. That secrecy suited Marcus perfectly, because before taking his seat behind the bench, he wanted to see firsthand what justice really looked like on the ground, without the polished speeches or the carefully rehearsed smiles. So today, he walked into his courthouse not as Judge Reed, but as Marcus, the man without the robe. The marble steps leading to the courthouse gleamed under the punishing sun. Marcus tugged at his shirt collar as he joined the line of people filing through the security checkpoint. Families, defendants, lawyers, even a few nervous witnesses. Everyone funneled into the same metal detectors under the watchful gaze of 2 deputies. "Next!" barked one of them, Officer Grayson, a broad white man with a jaw like granite. Marcus stepped forward, placing his backpack on the conveyor. Grayson's eyes narrowed. "What's in the bag?" "Just some papers," Marcus replied calmly. Grayson smirked. "We'll see about that." He shoved the bag through, then turned his attention back to Marcus. "Empty your pockets." Marcus obeyed, placing his wallet, keys, and phone in the tray. The scanner beeped as Marcus stepped through. "Raise your arms," Grayson ordered. He waved a wand over Marcus's chest, then paused deliberately, his smirk widening. "You carrying something you shouldn't?" Marcus shook his head. "No, sir." But before he could move, Grayson leaned close, his voice dripping with disdain. "You people always say that?" A low chuckle rose from the other deputy. Several people in line stiffened, pretending not to hear. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Then, as if to punctuate his power, Grayson spat at Marcus's shoes. "Move along before I change my mind." The crowd gasped softly. Marcus's chest burned, but he forced his expression to remain neutral. Without a word, he picked up his bag and walked on. The courthouse bustled with life. Clerks shuffling papers, attorneys arguing in hushed tones, defendants pacing nervously. Marcus walked slowly, observing everything. He passed a young black man, being berated by a bailiff for standing too close to a courtroom door. He saw a Latina mother scolded for speaking Spanish too loudly to her child in the hallway. The pattern was clear. Some people received courtesy, others contempt. Marcus tucked the observations away. Every detail mattered. Finally, he slipped quietly into the back of courtroom 3B. A session was already underway. Judge Wallace, a white man in his late 60s with a silver mane of hair, presided with an air of smug superiority. At the defendant's table sat a teenage boy in handcuffs, no older than 16, his eyes wide with fear. His public defender, clearly overworked, shuffled through papers without making eye contact. The prosecutor launched into a tirade. "Your Honor, this young man is a repeat offender. He was caught shoplifting at a grocery store. The community cannot afford leniency. We ask for the maximum penalty." The boy trembled. His mother, sitting in the gallery, clutched a tissue, silently mouthing prayers. Judge Wallace leaned forward. "Son, what do you have to say for yourself?" The boy stammered, My little sister was hungry. I didn't mean—" "Enough!" Wallace snapped. "Excuses don't feed society. 30 days in juvenile detention. Next case." The gavel cracked like thunder. The mother sobbed. The boy was dragged away. Marcus's chest tightened. The speed, the cruelty, the utter lack of empathy. It wasn't justice. It was assembly line punishment. And the worst part? The officers and clerks looked bored, as if this were just another Tuesday. An hour later, an announcement came over the intercom. All personnel to the main courtroom for a special session. The courthouse buzzed with speculation. People shuffled into the grand chamber, filling every bench. The bailiff stood at attention. Judge Wallace adjusted his robe at the front, clearly relishing his position. Marcus slipped out of the crowd, disappearing briefly. Moments later, the side door opened. A figure in crisp judicial robes entered, carrying a leather folder embossed with the county seal. Gasps rippled through the room. It was Marcus. He moved with calm authority, stepping up to the elevated bench. Judge Wallace froze, confusion and then dawning horror flickering across his face. The bailiff announced, "All rise for Chief Judge Marcus Reed." The entire room stood. Silence fell like a hammer. Marcus set down his folder, surveying the crowd. His gaze found Officer Grayson at the back, his smirk long gone. He saw Judge Wallace stiffen in his seat, color draining from his face. "Good afternoon," Marcus began, his voice steady but commanding. "As of this week, I have the honor of serving as Chief Judge of Fulton County." A ripple of shock surged through the room. Marcus paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "Before taking my seat officially, I came here today not as a judge but as a man. I walked through your halls, I stood in your lines, and I sat quietly in your courtrooms. What I witnessed was eye-opening. All eyes were locked on him. I saw defendants treated as if they were beneath contempt. I saw families humiliated for the language they speak or the color of their skin. And I experienced firsthand an officer spitting at me because he believed I did not belong here." A collective gasp echoed. Grayson's face went pale. Marcus's tone hardened. "Let me be clear. The days of unchecked cruelty and casual disrespect in this courthouse are over. Justice is not a privilege reserved for some. It is a right owed to all." Murmurs erupted, but Marcus raised a hand, silencing them. "Officer Grayson, step forward." The room turned as Grayson shuffled reluctantly to the front, his bravado shattered. "This morning you spat at me," Marcus said coldly. "But more importantly, you spat on the very principles you swore to uphold. Effective immediately, you are suspended pending a full disciplinary review." Gasps filled the chamber. Marcus turned to Judge Wallace. "And as for you, Your Honor, you handed down a sentence today that revealed more about your character than about justice. A hungry child needed compassion. You gave him contempt. That is not justice. That is cowardice." Wallace's face burned red. He opened his mouth to protest, but Marcus cut him off. "Starting Monday, every case in this courthouse will be reviewed under new oversight. Bias, cruelty, and corruption will not stand. If you cannot uphold the dignity of your office, you will not hold it at all." The silence was deafening. Every officer, clerk, and attorney felt the shift in the air. For the first time, accountability had entered the room. As Marcus concluded, he looked toward the benches where the teenage boy's mother still sat, tears staining her cheeks. "Ma'am," Marcus said gently, "your son's case will be reviewed immediately. No child should be punished for trying to feed his family." The mother clasped her hands together, sobbing with relief. Marcus straightened, his voice firm again. "This courthouse is not a place for humiliation. It is not a factory for punishment. It is a house of justice. And under my leadership, it will be rebuilt on respect, fairness, and humanity." The room erupted, not in applause, but in stunned silence, the kind that meant something was shifting. Marcus looked out over the sea of faces, some fearful, some inspired, many ashamed. "This is only the beginning," he said quietly, but every word carried. Word spread quickly. By Monday, when the official press conference was held, the entire city already knew the story. The judge who took off his robe dominated headlines, sparking debates about accountability and systemic change. And for the first time in years, people in Atlanta began to believe the courthouse might finally serve them, not just rule over them. As for Marcus Reed, he knew the battle was far from over. But he had made one thing unmistakably clear: justice would no longer bow to prejudice, not in his house.